I think I look at people today that, quote, people think have a perfect life, and I know that nothing is as it seems. Nothing is. And I know people are walking around with tremendous pain, tremendous heartbreak, tremendous loss, tremendous, grief.
Maria Shriver once had a marriage that all of America admired, but she never could have imagined the bitter secret lurking behind that perfect facade. What could be crueler than discovering your husband's infidelity? Realizing that for 14 years you had been caring for, comforting, and watching his love child grow up right under your own roof. How could a brilliant, fiercely proud woman of Kennedy blood be deceived for so many years? The answer perhaps lies in a promise Maria once believed would keep their marriage unbreakable forever. But how did it all actually begin? Let's dive in. The Princess and the Muscle Man. In August 1977, at the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Tennis Tournament in Forest Hills, New York, 21-year-old Maria Shriver met Arnold Schwarzenegger for the first time. Two people sharing the same moment in time, yet hailing from worlds with almost nothing in common. Maria was the daughter of Eunice Kennedy Shriver, sister to President John F. Kennedy. She was the niece of JFK, of Senator Ted Kennedy, of Robert F. Kennedy. Maria's entire childhood was a montage of dinners with political titans, the laughter, and the whispers of a dynasty America had dubbed Camelot. She was raised with an invisible burden, born to shoulder the legacy of a family that defined 20th century America. Arnold, on the other hand, was a 30-year-old reigning Mr. Olympia, the most famous bodybuilder on the planet. He came from a small town in Austria and spoke with an accent so thick that Hollywood producers had bluntly told him he would never be a leading man. Everything about Arnold was the exact opposite of what the Kennedy clan expected in Maria's future husband. When she first brought Arnold home to Hyannisport, the family's reaction was predictable. Eunice was skeptical from the get-go. Ted Kennedy cracked jokes about the weightlifter over dinner, and the murmured judgments never truly ceased. Maria heard it all. She didn't argue. She simply told her mother something that many in the family would remember for years. "You'll see. He will never let me down." It was the first promise in this story, and the promise that would be broken the most. A fairy tale wedding and the seeds of destruction. Nearly a decade passed before Arnold proposed. The wedding took place on April 26, 1986, at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. Everything was staged like a fairy tale. Maria wore a custom Dior gown designed by Mark Bohan, featuring an 11-foot train. 450 guests packed the white folding chairs under the late spring sun. Oprah Winfrey read a poem. Caroline Kennedy, Maria's cousin, was the maid of honor. Andy Warhol was there. Barbara Walters was there. The American and European press covered it with the fervor of a royal wedding. But in a wedding photo from 1986, there is a tiny detail no one noticed at the time. The bridesmaid in white standing next to Maria is Caroline Kennedy. 25 years later, Caroline would be one of the very first people Maria called when her world collapsed. In that single photograph lies both the best day of Maria's life and the seeds of her darkest. They just didn't know it yet. After the wedding, Maria began a new chapter. A chapter that, for many years, everyone thought would be her most beautiful. Behind the glamour, Maria and Arnold had 4 children in 8 years: Catherine in 1989, Christina in 1991, Patrick in 1993, and Christopher in 1997. While raising 4 kids, Maria continued to build her own career. She worked as an anchor for NBC News. She won a Peabody. She won an Emmy. She refused to be known merely as Arnold's wife, and she proved it. Maria was a Kennedy, a journalist, a mother, and a wife all at once. Meanwhile, Arnold reached heights Hollywood once swore he could never touch. The Terminator, Total Recall, True Lies, Predator. His salary hit the $20 million mark per film. The thick Austrian accent that was once mocked became his trademark. He was the American dream in a leather jacket. From the outside looking in, it was America's most perfect marriage. Two people at the pinnacle of two completely different worlds, gracing magazine covers, walking red carpets, and smiling alongside their four beautiful children. But inside that very home, a harsh reality was literally growing. And Maria was the only one left in the dark. Two babies, one roof. In early 1997, the Brentwood mansion became the backdrop for a cruel irony. Maria Shriver was pregnant with her fourth child, Christopher. At the exact same time, Mildred Baena, the family's housekeeper of nearly a decade, was also pregnant with Arnold's child. Everything unfolded within the same space, yet in two entirely separate worlds. Maria lived in the luxurious master suite, while Mildred retreated to the small maid's quarters in the back, less than 100 feet away. Two women, two pregnancies, sharing the same father for the children in their wombs. Yet, while the whole world celebrated the growing Kennedy lineage, a different truth was quietly taking shape in the back of the house. On September 27, 1997, Christopher was born. Just 5 days later, Joseph took his first breath in the back room. The image of Maria tenderly nursing her newborn in the master bedroom, while Mildred did the exact same in the staff quarters, remains a heartbreaking symbol of betrayal. On one side, prestigious joy. On the other, a carbon copy, quietly growing up a grim arrangement that time would eventually turn into the biggest scandal of Arnold Schwarzenegger's life. Secrets, hidden in family photos. Mildred chose to bury the secret with a simple lie. She claimed her husband, Rogelio Baena, was the baby's father. Rogelio, with absolute love, cared for Joseph, changed his diapers, and took him to baseball games, completely oblivious to the fact that he was raising another man's son. However, time is the enemy of lies. By 2008, when Joseph turned 11, the genetics became impossible to ignore. No DNA test was needed. The boy's square jaw, posture, and radiant smile betrayed the lie, screaming the identity of his true father. Rogelio's suspicions led to a fierce confrontation, ultimately destroying their marriage and ending in divorce. Meanwhile, right at the Brentwood estate, the secret was kept under wraps through Arnold's quiet financial support. He paid Mildred a salary far above the standard rate for a housekeeper, the price of maintaining her silence. This is the bitterest part of the story. For 13 years, Joseph was a part of the Schwarzenegger family's daily life. He swam in their pool, sat at their tables, and appeared in hundreds of family photos right next to Christopher, his half-brother born just 5 days before him. Maria walked past this secret every single day, inadvertently looking at her husband's replica in the face of the housekeeper's son, without a shred of suspicion. Blind faith in her partner had clouded her vision to a truth standing right in front of her. The most agonizing question remains: did Arnold truly not know Joseph was his son for years? Or did he simply choose the path of willful ignorance? Whatever the answer, the deception at the Brentwood home was not an isolated accident or a fleeting moment of weakness. It was a deep fracture in the character of the man Maria had worshipped. Looking back with a clear mind, she would realize the warning signs had been there all along, but her trust made her look the other way. When betrayal becomes instinct. To truly understand how Mildred managed to hide the truth from Maria for 13 years, you have to realize she wasn't the first. She was simply the only one who had a child. Even more telling, the red flags regarding Arnold's true nature had been waving for a long time, forming a pattern of behavior that Maria had willfully chosen to ignore. Even before the lavish Hyannisport wedding, Arnold had a prolonged affair with actress Brigitte Nielsen while filming Red Sonja in 1985, a fact Brigitte unapologetically confirmed in 2008. Later, Gigi Goyette alleged an intermittent relationship with Arnold spanning over a decade, starting when she was just 16. The breaking point came in 2003, during Arnold's run for governor of California, when 7 women publicly accused him of unwanted groping, a scandal the press dubbed Gropegate. These weren't isolated incidents of infidelity. They were a systemic pattern of disrespect, a glaring warning about the man Arnold was, which Maria continually overlooked. Through all those years, every time a scandal broke, Maria Shriver stood by his side. She defended him to the press, smiled, and declared her unwavering trust in her husband. She leveraged her Kennedy bloodline as collateral for the honor of a man whose honor had actually been fractured long ago. Right up until the afternoon, when she simply couldn't believe it anymore. The afternoon. Everything shattered. In early 2011, as Arnold wrapped up his term as governor of California, Joseph turned 13. The physical resemblance between the teenager and Maria's children had become too glaring. The whispers in the Brentwood estate could no longer be ignored. Maria had tried to deny it, convincing herself it was just her imagination playing tricks under the stress of life. But suspicion is like a tumor, growing over time until that fateful afternoon. Bathed in the golden California sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, Maria pulled Mildred into a quiet corner. The room was dead silent. Maria looked straight at the housekeeper, who had been with the family for years, and asked a single question. "Is Joseph Arnold's son?" Mildred broke down in tears, and between her sobs, confessed the truth the family had kept buried for over a decade. Maria didn't scream, break down, or smash anything. She just quietly sat down on the nearest chair, suspended in a silence that no one could measure. It was the moment 25 years of marriage, 4 children, and hundreds of family dinners came rushing back, not in happiness, but in the collapse of a trust that would never be whole again. After years of lying to herself, she had finally faced the answer her heart had sensed all along. When faith crumbles, Maria moved out of Brentwood immediately. She sought therapy. She leaned heavily on her Roman Catholic faith. She consulted priests and rabbis, anyone who could help her make sense of why her life had turned out this way. The hardest part for Maria wasn't the separation. It was the divorce. She is a devout Catholic. To a Catholic, marriage isn't a contract you can just terminate. It is a vow. Maria was raised to believe that marriage is forever. Now, she was faced with breaking the very thing she held most sacred. She wasn't just losing a husband. She was losing a piece of her own religious identity. The hits didn't stop there. Her mother, Eunice, passed away in 2009. Her father, Sergeant Shriver, died in January 2011. Her marriage fell apart in May of that same year. In just over a year, Maria lost her father, her uncle, her mother, her marriage, her career, and her identity. Yet, she still showed up at family events. She still smiled for the cameras. She still maintained the poised posture of a Kennedy while her private life shattered into pieces. Her last night in Brentwood is one she has never told anyone about. She walked through every room, the kids' rooms, the office, the master bedroom one last time. She took very little with her. A few books, pictures of her kids, and a wedding ring she would never wear again. She walked out the doors of Brentwood for the last time, not as a first lady, not as a Schwarzenegger, but simply as a woman named Maria, setting out to find herself again. The day America found out. On May 9th, 2011, Maria and Arnold issued a joint statement announcing their separation. The wording was formal and respectful, with not a single sentence hinting at the truth behind closed doors. 8 days later, the dam broke. On May 17th, 2011, the Los Angeles Times published the bombshell that blew it all wide open. The article named Mildred. It named Joseph. It named dates. Arnold issued a statement that very night, admitting he had fathered a child with a household staff member over a decade ago. Within 24 hours, the story went global. Every tabloid in the world ran with it. Every late-night host cracked jokes. Every magazine dedicated its front pages to photos of Maria, Mildred, Joseph, and Arnold. Maria Shriver, Kennedy royalty, Peabody and Emmy-winning journalist, former First Lady of California, was exposed to the world as the woman whose husband had a love child with their maid. 2011 was already a brutal year for the marriages of American politicians and celebrities. John Edwards was indicted. Anthony Weiner went down in a sexting scandal. Tiger Woods was still grappling with the fallout from 2009. But the Maria Arnold saga hit differently. This was a family with the Kennedy name. This was the ultimate symbol of the American dream merging with the Hollywood dream. When this story broke, many Americans felt like something had finally snapped. In 2011, when a Kennedy said enough, the whole country was saying enough, too. The price of silence, 10 years and $400 million. Maria and Arnold never signed a prenuptial agreement. When they tied the knot in 1986, Arnold wasn't a megastar yet, and a prenup wasn't on anyone's mind. 25 years later, the decision not to sign that piece of paper became one of the most crucial factors in their divorce. Under California's community property laws, Maria was entitled to half of everything Arnold earned during their 25-year marriage. Their total net worth was estimated at $300 to $400 million, encompassing paychecks from Terminator, True Lies, Total Recall, massive real estate investments, and a slew of businesses Arnold owned. Maria filed for divorce on July 1, 2011. She figured it would be wrapped up in a couple of years. The divorce was only finalized on December 28, 2021, more than 10 years later. It stands as one of the longest, most drawn-out celebrity divorces in Hollywood history. When Maria signed the final papers, she was 66 years old. She entered the marriage at 30 with all the blind faith of a Kennedy. She walked out at 66 with just one name, Maria. No Schwarzenegger. No one else. Just Maria. The numbers that don't lie. This is a story told in numbers. For 23 years, Mildred worked inside Maria's home. For roughly 5,000 days, Maria lived under the same roof as the woman who had secretly given birth to her husband's child, without knowing the truth. For 14 years, Joseph grew up only yards away from the bedrooms of Maria's own children. Before Mildred, 6 other women had publicly claimed involvement with Arnold, not including those who never came forward. Yet after everything was exposed, Maria gave 0 public interviews attacking him out of revenge. And when America's biggest tabloids offered her millions of dollars to sell her story, she refused every single dime. Those are the numbers. And sometimes, numbers speak louder than words. 2 destinies, 1 father. 2 boys born just 5 days apart, sharing the same blood. But from the moment they took their first breath, they were launched into entirely different orbits. One was destined to be the heir, while the other was a system error that needed to be swept under the rug. Christopher Schwarzenegger attended one of the most exclusive private schools in California. He went to the University of Michigan. He carries the Schwarzenegger name. He has never had to worry about money. Joseph Baena went to public school. He juggled his studies with part-time jobs. Later, he chose to pursue bodybuilding, the exact career that pulled Arnold out of Austria decades prior. He hits the gym, pumps iron, and posts photos on social media. In his own way, it's Joseph's attempt to earn recognition from the very man who hid him for 13 years. 2 boys born 5 days apart to the same father. One grew up a Schwarzenegger. The other had to carve out a name for himself. Joseph later said in an interview that he didn't have a normal childhood, but he also isn't the only victim in this story. When parents betray each other, the children are the first to pay the price, and they pay it the longest. Maria Shriver, rising from the ashes. After the scandal, many assumed Maria would retreat from public life. She didn't. In 2017, Maria launched the Sunday Paper, a weekly newsletter that gradually evolved into an independent media brand under her helm. In 2018, she published I've Been Thinking, which became a New York Times bestseller. In 2022, Radical Acceptance followed as yet another massive success. She founded the Women's Alzheimer's Movement, turning the grief of losing her father to the disease into a fierce new life purpose. She returned to NBC as a special anchor for Today. On the lower thirds, her name was no longer Maria Shriver Schwarzenegger. It was just Maria Shriver. She quietly dropped her husband's last name from her professional life without a single grand PR announcement. Maria's post-divorce personal life has been kept surprisingly private. Rumors of a relationship with Jeff Zucker, former CNN president, have circulated, but they have never been publicly confirmed or paraded on red carpets. That is how Maria chooses to live her life now, discreetly and fiercely proud. Her journey inevitably draws comparisons to her legendary aunt-in-law, Jackie Kennedy. Both women, born into the powerful Kennedy dynasty, endured profound betrayal under the harsh glare of the spotlight. Instead of weaponizing their pain for revenge or PR leverage, they both chose a dignified silence. This isn't a sign of weakness or resignation, it's Kennedy dignity, a profound conviction that one's life and honor are worth far more than someone else's scandal. Maria refused to be a victim in the tabloids. She became the architect of her next chapter. Is this a part of the Kennedy legacy? Or is it simply the price women in powerful families are forced to pay in silence? A belated confession. After 12 years. In 2023, in the Netflix documentary Arnold, Schwarzenegger finally shed the armor of a politician trying to manage a PR crisis, as he did back in 2011. If his past admission was a forced reaction to public exposure, this time, his words carried the weight of a man facing his own conscience. Stripping away the diplomatic spin, he called the affair his biggest failure, a belated confession aimed not at placating the public, but at confronting the scars he left on Maria and their children for over a decade. After Maria's long period of dignified silence, Arnold had finally given voice to the pain she had quietly endured since 2011. Today, though their marriage is officially closed, Maria and Arnold have found a way to co-parent with grace. They stood together at their daughter Catherine's wedding, supported each other at their kids' graduations, and accepted Joseph Baena's integration into the lives of his half-siblings. They chose to move forward without erasing the past. Maria has forgiven, but she has never forgotten. Because to her, forgiveness isn't about wiping out the memories. It's about freeing herself from the heavy burden of the pain. The aftermath. Over the past decade, despite being hounded by the media and offered astronomical sums to spill the dark secrets of her marriage, Maria Shriver never once played the victim or gave an interview attacking Arnold. She understands that the greatest revenge doesn't lie in bitter words, but in living a life that outshines her painful past. Maria didn't just survive the betrayal. She outlived it, rose above it, and redefined herself entirely on her own terms, long after scrubbing the Schwarzenegger name from her life.